Hello, everyone, and welcome to our discussion, Art Under COVID-19, Local Perspectives. This is the first part in what will hopefully be a series of talks with different creatives on this subject that visual therapy is trying to curate. So joining us today is Tania, Shammas, Aseel, Al-Yaqoub, and Mohammad, Sharaf. For today's discussion, we wanted to talk about the impact of COVID-19, the impact it has had on the local art market. Also wanted to discuss creative innovations that have come about as a result of this crisis. And moving on to different strategies we would adopt post-crisis in addition to any predictions any of you foresee, okay? So let's start by introducing ourselves briefly. Tania, I guess you can go first.
Hi, my name is Tania Shammas. I'm the gallery manager at the Contemporary Art Platform in Kuwait.
Great, thank you. Aseel?
Hi, my name is Aseel Al-Yaqoub and I'm a visual artist based in Kuwait.
Mohammad?
I'm Mohammad Sharaf. I'm a graphic designer and a visual artist, and I'm the director of Sharaf Studio, which is based in Kuwait as well.
Great, and I'm Shahad Bishara. I am the founder and curator of visual therapy. So let's get started on our discussion then. So over the last month, we've kind of witnessed the impact of COVID-19 on the creative and cultural industry around the world. In Kuwait, we've seen similar effects, and in turn, this has forced us to kind of slow down our process and find new ways of producing and sharing creative work. Talking about the impacts and effects of COVID-19, specifically on the financial and social kind of impacts. Tania, let's go and start with you first. As a creative organization, CAP, Contemporary Art Platform, what has been the impact, and especially with, forced closures and exhibition cancellations? I know your program has been affected for the rest of the season, so can you just shed some light on what's going on with CAP?
Yeah, so I mean, that was our first impact, was having to close the gallery following government directives, and we had to postpone all of our activities due to the uncertainty of the situation, which I think pretty much happened across a lot of sectors in Kuwait. This was the first social impact, let's say. We lost the space we usually connect with our audience, and their space also to experience art firsthand. But these new circumstances also provided an opportunity to adopt a different way of working. Financially, I think this tends to happen during a crisis. The arts do suffer because the focus shifts to an almost survivor way of being. This isn't to say that art is not essential, because once the initial impact declines, we do see the creatives shining through. And I think that response was clearly seen during COVID-19 on a local and international perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a shame that the arts has to suffer this way. I guess within society, it's not seen as a priority right now. So maybe in terms of like what can happen next, I guess it's something us as a creative community have to come together and kind of think about these things and not really rely so much on like public or governmental help for these things. Okay. Mohammad, what about you? What has the impact been on your creative business? Given the fact that like maybe a lot of your projects rely on clients whose businesses may have also been affected.
Mm.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I'm going to talk about like our experience, I would kind of call it like personal experience as a studio, and then on my own personal experience. As for the studio, I think the main impact is we cannot gather together in one place, and given that the kind of work we do or the way we work is kind of a kitchen style, so usually we sit and discuss and then share the projects, even share parts within projects together. So this has been affected because, I mean, we're designers and like we all worked as freelancers and we're used to working from home, from coffee shops and so. But I think the fact that there is like something in the back of our head. Made me personally slow when it comes to creating. So when it comes to clients, I think luckily as a studio, we have a couple of clients that they didn't stop working, and then we're still doing some work. But generally speaking, I think the studio became much slower than it used to be. So instead of producing, let's say, like a certain amount of work in a month, it's taking 3 months to produce the same amount of work.
Yeah.
I think the same thing in my personal experience as a designer or as a visual artist, it's also the same thing. There is always something in the back of my head. I'm kind of distracted. So my work and my process has been really slow. This is, let's say, like the downside of it. There's other good sides of what's happening, but maybe we can talk about them later on. Financially speaking, honestly speaking, because we're a small studio and we're almost act as a freelancer, almost, because we're like two to three people. We didn't have so much effect because of the crisis, thankfully.
Yeah. So I guess also being a designer, you could always work remotely from many different places. You don't ever really have to be in the office, you know, so maybe that is a plus for you because, you know, like with this whole situation, we're all forced to be at home. So we're all forced to find kind of ways to work from home. So for you, maybe it's not, it wasn't so much of a shift.
Definitely.
For that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, Aseel, as an artist who works independently, has there been a direct impact on your work?
I think similarly to Mohammad, it's been very slow. Like the process is super slow now, but then the moving the studio from the studio to the home has been an impact, like a large impact on my work, because of the fact that the way my studio is well, like the way I've set it up is that there's a space for dirty work, there's a space for clean work. There's enough space to do that, whereas in the house, like I feel like I needed to change, sort of readapt the way I worked. So now that for me took a while to reconstruct. So to find a system at home that can work for me and what I'm doing, which has led me to focus more on like admin work, stuff that I've neglected for a really long time, like rebuilding my website or writing or replying to certain emails, checking in on like my previous networks. So there's been a lot of back-end work that I'm catching up on, and less actual handwork or artworks being produced than my usual sort of process. But I think it's also been a time of like reflection on my practice and also on catching up on some research that could further enhance my practice. It's almost like a really simple residency that I'm experiencing at the moment. Like there's not much inspiration other than what I have, but I have a lot of books. So like that's been sort of what I've been catching up on and trying to like, you know, I say I'm a research-based artist, but then in the normal days, like there's not enough time to do that much research. And with this, there's like plenty of time. So that's sort of been my like 9 to 5, you know, and then, you know, you don't really do much after that. Just do what you need to do at home. So it's been relaxing, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. But I guess as an artist who does work at home, or a designer that's also kind of working from home, it's also like you find that you have to kind of really manage your time well and like kind of maybe get out of that zone, maybe like change your clothes, change the environment a little just so you can, I don't know, focus on work and not have it be like a distraction. Like for me, my work area is in the living room, so it's a bit difficult sometimes. Like, you know, my husband would be sitting watching TV and things, and I'd have to sit and do some work, so it gets a little bit distracting. So as an artist or a designer, or even for you, Tanya, doing work, you probably need to kind of be in your zone, have like a space set up for you that makes you feel comfortable working.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we spoke about the impact and kind of touched briefly on that. So during the crisis, while we've been sitting at home and having all this time, we've seen a lot of innovations happening around the world as a response to this crisis. Some of them more creative than others. So I'd like to just talk about that because I think it's really important to kind of know what people are doing and what maybe people locally are doing around the world and locally as a response to this crisis. So one thing definitely that stood out is that we've seen a lot of businesses obviously migrate to an online business model right now as a response and result of this crisis. So we're seeing a lot of galleries, kind of do online virtual like viewing rooms. We've seen a lot of designers and artists take part in these talks, such as the ones we're doing now, like online talks. We've seen a lot of different initiatives take place. So Tanya, what are your thoughts on this? What has CAP done in terms of this kind of online migration, just in order to keep kind of the business like alive and in people's minds?
Yeah, we've been working on our online presence for a while now. Apart from the use of social media, we've worked with Google Arts and Culture to showcase CAP's collection online. We're also working with Artsy, which is a great online platform for buying and selling works. All our exhibitions are updated there. You can see all the artworks, as well as, of course, keeping our website up to date. I think having an online presence is important for galleries and artists. It has been for a while, I think with the situation now, there's definitely been a greater push towards online content.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think it's a great option to have, moving forward.
I think there might be a bit of a lag, but yeah, definitely. What I see in Kuwait is a lot of businesses, not just creative, a lot of normal businesses lack an online presence in terms of like a website or just a proper professional kind of presence that doesn't just rely on like Instagram and things like that. So I guess this time, and a lot of them also kind of maybe lacked, like this is what I've noticed too, especially during this crisis, you saw that a lot of businesses kind of missed opportunities in the whole online shopping experience, things like that, where you've seen them during a lockdown, like quickly come up with like a website. Can you guys, are you hearing me okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw that there was a lot of missed opportunities for a lot of businesses when it came to the online sphere, so I really hope like this kind of crisis kind of wakes people up and makes them realize that, hey, online is a really integral part of any business these days, whether we have a crisis or not. A lot of people, especially in Kuwait, with zahma and everything, like we're not really, sometimes we just don't feel like going out, we don't feel like being social, so we just kind of want to be introverted at home, so we want to shop at home, we want to look at things at home. So I think it's important that businesses now take this online thing seriously. What about you, Mohammad? Considering a lot of your projects don't really get exposed to the public until they're completed, how are you maintaining your online presence as a design studio and as a designer?
Honestly speaking, I think we've been a little bit slower than our online presence used to just finish out this website, and most likely after like maybe in like 2 or 3 weeks it will be finally up after like being empty for like 2 years. So this is something we kind of used the time during the crisis to prepare. We've honestly, like as a studio, we've been slow when it comes to online presence during the crisis. Like we're not posting as usual. We're not like sharing as usual. We've done few things at the beginning of the crisis, but then the thing just like we didn't know like when it's gonna end, and then we barely have headspace to do the actual work. So like, you know, like managing online platforms and like websites or Instagram, it has like a whole also I mean a whole like process, and it needs a lot of content generation. So we decided to just like slow down on the mainly the Instagram presence, and then just try.
Yeah, I guess maybe sometimes with everything that's going on, it's hard to kind of juggle everything, you know? But yeah, you definitely need to keep it up. I saw that you did like a kind of a tribute to your online collaborators or your collaborators. So that's nice, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, let's keep it going. We really like to see more of your work being published, and like to know what you're up to. Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah. So Aseel, as an artist who's always had a strong online presence, how important do you think it's for other artists to have, especially these days, with the uncertainty of exhibitions and, you know, public events and things like that for artists? So what's your take on that?
Firstly, I had no idea I had a strong online presence.
You do. I mean, you're very you're very organized. Your website's always up to date. You're up to date with your projects. You post about what's going on with you professionally. So we're aware of what's happening. You're not an artist asleep for you know, for a while. But yeah. So you're an active artist online. So you know how in Kuwait a lot of artists do rely on just maybe Instagram as a platform for their presence. So how important do you think it's for other artists to do right now, to be active?
I think it's important, but not just on the social media, like on the social media spectrum. I think that it's important to maybe start to create online catalogs for works. A website could be a catalog where they could present their works, or even the journey of their practices. You know, I feel like now with this COVID situation, there's a lot of people who have more time on their hands to actually explore. If someone internationally was interested in Middle Eastern artists, you know, the first thing they would do is Google like artists in the Middle East who are tackling this. So you need to have you need to figure out a way as an artist to reach that stage where your name would pop up if someone was searching for you. And there's many ways to do that. Like there's people who do Wikipedia pages, and then so that instantly comes up as sort of like a row. Then you have websites, you have online publications, you can do collaborative interviews with people. You could even do artist or peer interviews and put them up online, find the best magazines, online magazines, or even platforms that do that. So I think this is an opportunity to investigate. And I think I've discovered so much while in quarantine. Like I've subscribed to so many online email threads, which tells me of exhibitions that are happening, reviews of certain shows that we could never see. And I think the future of exhibitions will be very much like what Tania was saying, where you go on Artsy and you can do a virtual tour of an exhibition without really having to be there. And I've seen museums like Darat al-Funun in Jordan, where they did an actual virtual 3D tour where you could like panorama and zoom in on certain parts of the museum and really experience it without even having to be there. But obviously, like when you go to an exhibition, you lack, when it's online, you lack the aura of the artwork itself. So you can't really gauge, you know, its presence in time and space. But I think that might be our main issue in the future, is how do we understand the aura of works when we're not in their presence, like in physical environment.
Yeah, I guess you are right. There are a lot of maybe now art fairs that are going online. They have online viewing rooms. There's a lot of exhibitions too that are happening online. And I guess each one of them is taking on their own strategy of how to kind of work within their audience and with their collectors and things like that. So maybe one option would be like, okay, we'll do the digital viewing room. But if you're like really interested in a specific work, you can make an appointment to come and see it. Whereas to kind of limit the human interaction and the crowdedness of these kind of things. But yeah, I guess we'll get to that in a bit. But the creative kind of industry is a very social one, so this is a huge thing for us to kind of take away that social aspect. So it kind of makes things a little bit dry, yeah. So
I don't miss it.
You know what? I actually don't miss it either. Like the fact that like maybe openings aren't going to be as like open as they are. To me, I never really liked openings to begin with. I always found them a little bit kind of stressful, and oh my God, you have these 2 hours where you have to kind of talk to everyone and make sure everyone understands and try to sell and things like that. So it's just like taking that away. It's just like, oh, okay, now you can just sit and enjoy the art for art's sake, and now you have to think of all like the weird business side and the schmoozing and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Okay, so another thing I've noticed is that we're also seeing a lot of a trend of all of us being in quarantine and in isolation. We're seeing a trend of kind of these solidarity art initiatives and like artists in quarantine or art in isolation projects, things like that. I'm seeing a lot of them happen. So Tania, let's start with you. As an organization, do you feel a responsibility during this time to kind of curate these kind of projects or initiatives? I know you're doing something online right now that has to do with like a keyword and getting a response on people's feelings and tag us in a picture or an artwork or a photo. So I know you're doing something like that that's kind of reaching out to your audience, but do you feel any kind of need or want as an organization to do something that's related to some kind of solidarity art project or something kind of to kind of work with artists that you represent or artists that you work with directly as an organization?
Yeah, so I mean, we don't actually represent artists. We work with a lot of different artists. I think just to touch on the point of work being slower or, we've all kind of been thrown in this situation. So we're trying to almost, I think, day by day, try to see kind of the best way of going about it. So at the beginning, I did feel like the artists and creatives had a really lovely kind of reaction locally and internationally. So I think our first, while we're trying to make sure that all our content was available online, we were also kind of using our platform to share all these different things that were happening. And then we started, when we went into full lockdown, we started the activity kind of section. So just to try to get people a bit motivated, kind of think about things differently. We haven't, definitely something that we want to do in the future.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that last part. You haven't thought about it?
No, we haven't collaborated officially yet, but it is something that we're thinking about for the future.
Yeah, yes. Because I know now, like at this point now, by the time we go back to get back to work and CAP opens up, it's like the season's ended anyways, technically, you know? So it's just kind of prepping for the fall season, which maybe is a blessing in disguise that the season ends at this time. That way you have at least like 3 or 4 months to shwaya kind of recuperate and see and settle in and kind of get your program in order for the next season.
Yeah,
in a more
definitely.
COVID-friendly way, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, usually we do take that time to do that. And I think, I mean, I guess we're slowly opening back up again, but I don't think, you know, it needs to happen a bit slowly. Otherwise it feels like maybe everything we've been through, you know, we kind of have to go over again. So I still see a strong online presence, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, like, I think moving forward, like if there's anything we can take from this whole experience is that for any business, not just art, is that like you need to have an online supplement or else like, what are you doing, you know? Either if you're a business or a shop that sells, you need to have an online shop. If you're any kind of business, you need to find a way to have a presence online, or else kind of, I don't know, like, especially if you have a product-based business, you need to sell, you need to be there, you need to be active with your audience, and you need to be able to engage with people who, because like I said, not everyone's going to be ready to go out and mingle and be a part of society. Like I, for one, you know, I'm not ready to just start going out to restaurants and things like that. Like I kind of want to take my time, see how things are going, see what kind of measures are being enforced and how people are kind of working with them, and then kind of ease into it. But yeah, I think it's going to take a while for us to kind of get back into the normal or the old ways of doing things. If in fact we even go back to that, maybe we're not.
I think we will. I think we will. Maybe not now, but definitely down the line, once it's all over, you know, I think, you know, we're social beings, so we will, I think, or we even now miss a little bit of interaction.
Definitely. Okay, so Aseel, what about you as an artist? Have you taken part in any of these initiatives, or kind of artists in isolation, any quarantine type of projects, or have you just kind of been doing your own thing? And as an artist, like, do you think, what kind of, like, do you think you have a responsibility to do so during a time like this?
I'm personally not a reactionary type of artist, so I don't even know where to begin to do something that's relevant to now, as most of my work is I investigate the past in order to understand the present. But now we're in the present, and I'm using this time to document and to archive what's happening, so that a few years from now I can sort of reflect on what's been happening, because I can't make sense of it right now at all. And any work that I would do, I feel would be more out of an emotive place rather than sort of a mental or, you know, a contemplative place. I think the only thing that I did was that I had a previous project that was about DIY gas masks during the Gulf War, that I just contextualized to in an essay for KFAS. Like I just recontextualized it for today to understand just the mask as an object in the world, or like as an agent in this sort of scenario, and what it could mean in the future. But other than that, it's just so hard to understand what's going on. I don't know about you guys, but it's like I stopped watching the news, and if I do, it's like once a week. I just watch our like local news whenever there's any announcements, and that's that. And so it really is, I've recreated, like I feel like the world's become a bubble and I've made another bubble in the bubble, and I'm just completely like I took isolation to a whole new level again.
But I guess artists in themselves are kind of solitary, like their work is very solitary, and they are very solitary people. So I don't think, like, for many artists, like, I don't think a lot has changed, right?
Yeah. But I do think that there may be a lot of opportunities for artists that are the type of artists who react to what happens in their everyday life, and they feed off of that for content. And if their work is that type of work and their practice is actually like consistently like feeding off of these type of scenarios and then creating artworks as a sort of the byproducts of these situations, then this is a great opportunity, because I don't think, I mean, it's very rare that we as a world will face such a crisis. I mean, the last time was like 100 years ago when it was the Spanish flu. So to be in this phase again, I think there could be a lot of activist work that comes out of it. There could be actually some really beautiful material-based researched work where you have the time to actually explore the methods of painting or sculpture. It is an opportunity, but yani, for me, I want to completely avoid it till like 10 years from now.
I know, Mohammad, I've seen on your, not maybe the Sharaf Studio Instagram, but your personal Instagram, that you've been taking these very quirky work from home photos. I thought that was really interesting and kind of really like a nice, like lighthearted take on, you know, the fact that we have to work from home. And I don't know, tell us like how that came to be, or like, Madi, what made you? I know you are a kind of maybe a response. Your work is very responsive and to many different kind of situations. So tell us about that. And
sure. So yeah, I mean, as you said, like the series of posters that I'm used to do is called visual reaction. So it's exactly like you had said and what Aseel said. I mean, at the beginning of the crisis, I was doing some work here and there, and it was, and as Aseel mentioned, it was something that is motivating, something instructional, something, I don't know, either to help the frontliners. I was working with I'm still working with a small group as a kind of a soft power supporting, like, let's say, sidekick for these things that is happening on a national level. And then this thing a little bit slowed down as we went in the crisis. And then, as I said earlier, it's been really hard to actually focus on a complex project and do work, actual work. So I was like, how can I do something that is satisfying personally? And it's funny, it's lighthearted. It doesn't need a lot of research and a lot of craft and a lot of like doing. It's just, I literally dressed up in a formal dress tashdasha, and I sat in my bed and I took a photo I'm working on laptop. And at the beginning, it was just that. I mean, it's working from home. I was just making fun of what's going on. All this like Zoom meeting or live or like Instagram live conversations, and you know, the whole like, also like a lot of people are saying like, use this time to create things, use this time to learn something new. So it's just like a sarcastic play on all of that. Like, how am I going to use this time to work and to look formal and look good and like a picture perfect setup? And then it just got, I mean, I don't know, it departed from there. Like, it started with one post, and then I started like imagining, as I think it's similar to what I usually do. I imagine things as they're written or as they're mentioned. Like, how can I work from home? Like, what's working from home look like? What's a picture perfect? What's multitasking? What's how are we working out from home? Like, how are we doing all this and I live alone. So this adds another level of like really working from home alone. So I just started just doing random things. And whenever I feel like I'm stressed out because of work or because of working or because of not working, I tend to do these posts. I don't know how long they're gonna last. Like, I might come up with a couple more, but I don't know. But I think, as you said, it's lighthearted. The funny thing is, like, I did it as a just for fun, but a lot of people, it got really popular for some reason. I don't know why, but a lot of people are actually relating to it. A lot of people, they're saying like they're actually saying thank you, which I didn't understand. I didn't understand. I still don't understand why they're thanking me. It's just like, something I usually do, and I'm doing it. Well, actually, I'm exploring maybe like a new medium or direction now, because I don't do a lot of photography, but it's just a reaction. But I think people are relating to it. They're finding it funny, and kind of adds just like a light, let's say, a light look for all this crisis and staying at home and all these like bad and negative news that we hear every day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
I think. Sorry, Shahad.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Your photo series, this photo series is something that people will look back on like 10 years from now and see as sort of a reflection, you know, like when you have other artists like Cindy Sherman or people who dress up and they do these scenarios. And so with these, it becomes almost like that's why I feel like it's either they have to end at a certain point because they'll no longer function for what they're meant to be functioning for, but then exist as a series, as something that can be looked at even anthropologically and down the line of like the times in which humans were sick from corona, you know, it's like corona is a common flu now or something, you know. أحس إن بالعكس يعني I wouldn't belittle it as a project, but maybe like take it or see it as something that will be used or looked at later on, maybe not in our lifetime, but further as documentation for this time.
Yeah, it's really great. Relax. I applaud you. I mean, you found something and it kind of started to take a life of its own, and now it's like an actual like project that came out of something that wasn't really, you didn't really have that in mind, you know, when creating it. So, but that's great. At least you can say now your time during lockdown, there's something kind of to take out of it, you know.
I think one of the nicest things that happened, that I think the second post of the series, the second or third, I think it's the second, people started to mimicking the same setup, and this was the highlight of the whole series, actually. Like, people came up with their own take on the setup, locally, internationally, like people from the States, from Emirates, from Kuwait, Iran, everywhere. And I think this was fun, and it was nice to see, like, I had a certain idea in mind when I created this setup, and then people interpreted differently, and then they came up with their own setup or understanding of this photo series, and then they posted it. And I think also this happened because people related to it, which is something nice that happened at that time.
Yeah, also I think,
sorry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, go ahead, Tania, sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that that's the beauty of it, because of it's a very simple idea. It takes a light turn on, you know, this kind of weird time that we're going through. And I think that's why, you know, simplicity is a beautiful thing. It's not easy to always get to that. And you do that all the time, Mohammad. Like, you're able to kind of put all these things in a very kind of direct way. And I think it resonates a lot with people.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say that. And I was also going to mention that, you know, maybe a lot of people, you kind of inspired them in a way, and that they're not shy about it. So like, you kind of got the ball rolling, and now people can, because you know how going online and having that kind of presence online and showing your face and stuff. I mean, like for me, for example, like I never really like to post. I mean, I have my own private Instagram account, but I even rarely even post myself on it. So maybe you were able to get people out of that shell, you know, and start to feel more comfortable, and kind of also just not take this whole serious situation so seriously.
So serious, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm glad. We'll keep it up. I'd like to see more projects coming out very organically as a response to these things, for sure. Okay. So another thing I've noticed also is a lot of these kind of like cross kind of sector collaborations and partnerships, such as, let's say, fashion designers who can no longer now produce collections during the lockdown or during quarantine, kind of creating like lab coats and masks for the health industry and frontline workers, things like that, where you take your skill and kind of utilize it to an industry that's not related to yours. So I kind of wanted to talk about that, and because I've been noticing a lot of that lately, and I kind of just wanted to get your ideas on that. So Aseel, I know you mentioned your mask making project, and I know you've, sorry, someone was knocking on the door. I know you've had a project of mask making. So can you tell us how, can you kind of just go ahead and talk to us about that project? And I know like in the past it was kind of related to the Gulf War, but it's interesting now that you can kind of take it and reintroduce it in kind of like a new context to like a new audience. And maybe, who knows, work with, let's say, CAP on creating a workshop to make masks or something like that. I know, just kind of these different collaborations happening. Sorry about that.
I think for the mask, it was, for me, what was interesting is the fear and anxiety that's associated with it as an object. So during the Gulf War, when we used to make, like, I was too young at the time, but like my family would sit and they would stitch like these coal-filled gas masks. And then in because of fears of chemical attack during the time. And then in 1998, there was a similar situation where, I don't know if you guys remember, in school and stuff with the drills, and we were faced with another threat, but this time we were prepared, and so we had like professional gas masks, but the immigrants and expats in Kuwait who couldn't afford the gas masks resorted to these DIY instructions that the Muqawama gave to the Kuwaitis in 1990. Obviously, it's a really almost like juvenile product. It doesn't really protect you from chemical attacks. And now today we're faced with the sort of same dilemma of, okay, some people, there's people saying 75% chance that these masks actually prevent the virus from spreading and protecting you. And then you have others that are fighting against their like liberties, like this is against my human rights and my human nature to cover my face. We're becoming robots. This is Orwellian. This is like 1984. So you're getting these mixed reactions from it, as well as racism and stereotyping. It's like, if you're wearing a mask, then you're sick. If you don't wear a mask, then you are a horrible person. So there's like, what does the mask represent today? And will it be a part of our lives? Like, when you see the amount of brands that are producing these masks and at what prices, and then you have also innovative studios, design studios and artists that are creating like super avant-garde interpretations of the mask that are also actually protective. And then you have obviously the fashion brands that you were saying that were making these and donating them. But at the end of the day, I feel like one way of sort of pushing this into the art realm, or maybe through a collaboration, is like what you said, is that to create a formal workshop where everyone at home can actually learn how to make a proper mask. But then again, you wonder what's special about this workshop when there's so many DIY YouTube videos right now that are doing it, and how do you engage? I don't know how that is going to work. But at the same time, like, to make your own mask might have a lot of like this craft at home in isolation might actually be something really therapeutic in these times.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like you said, and I feel like going forward, like probably it's going to be like the #1 fashion item that everyone will be having, like from high-end fashion masks to like fast fashion, like Zara, H&M masks. Like you'll see like the full range to like Nike athletic masks, like definitely, you know, or like people using it and kind of as a way of kind of showing, it's like an identity thing, like let's say
like a social status as well. It's like, look, I have the fancier one, but it almost feels like this mask not only is this like agent, but it has agency on us now. Like it's almost taken over our identity as a human race. And what's interesting is to see that what's the difference between that and a niqab, for example, specifically in places like France, you know, the way we perceive this object, I think in the future will be, I think it's something that it will be an archaeological artifact, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting to see how, like, first of all, they evolve from going to like a regular face mask to, who knows, maybe it'll even be a full-on like headpiece maybe that you wear. I'm not sure, you know. I know for another project I worked with another discussion I curated with another organization, is that we interviewed a group of people here in Kuwait that are 3D printing face shields. They're called Shield Kuwait. So it's interesting that, okay, we have that technology now to do these things. So it would be interesting to see how people with 3D printers at home can come up with like interesting designs for these things. I don't know, what do you think, Mohammad, considering you're the designer? Maybe a manual, something, I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know, honestly. The whole mask thing, and I'll be very honest and frank, I feel there is something ethical about creating these masks, especially like when it comes to relating it to a fashion and then selling it and actually making money out of this crisis. Mm-hmm. And this is just like a personal, let's say, opinion or thought. Whenever I see, like, I've seen like people posting about like these masks and they cost this much. Sure, I mean, sure, make money out of it, but I think there is something not comforting about making money out of this crisis. And I mean, I actually got like a lot of friends and family. They were asking like, are you going to create any sort of mask, or like, are you going to design something? And I mean, I was thinking about it and I was like, I don't know. No. Maybe designers that are specialized, maybe like industrial designers, they can come up with something that is like a breakthrough or something that minimizes the effect of the mask. I think the same thing that they're doing with like a Kuwait Shield or Kuwait Shield.
Yeah.
So I think they assembled like a team together, and then like they're creating these masks. They're laser cutting or they're 3D printing. So this is something noble. Like, this is sure. I would love designers to do that, but making it a fashion or making it something that is cool, for the lack of a better word, I don't know. I think there is something ethical around it. I don't know. I feel there is something ethical around there.
I guess what people are trying to do with these things is just make it more sustainable, as opposed to just buying these disposable masks. Because thinking about how long we'll be wearing masks and how many of these disposable masks you'll be going through in like a span of a week or a month, depending on how often you go out and things. Yeah. So I guess they're thinking of it in a more sustainable way, which is like another trend of this year of 2020, being green and being sustainable. It's all about that. Like, that's how people are thinking, you know. But you're right. There is, on the flip side, there is an ethical kind of stance to it, and it's just like, why are you trying to kind of profit? I know you lost money as a company, but really trying to sell a mask for $250, is that really like something? And how do I know that your mask will really like do the job?
That's the dilemma here, is like, how can I be sure, like, is this mask actually useful? Like, when you say I'm going to sell you a mask during this time today, I would assume that this mask is useful and it's going to protect me like with a certain percentage. But is it really? Like, it's kind of deceiving, like all this making use of this crisis to make money. And I think what's interesting about this crisis is we don't have like a historical, let's say, background that we can build on it. Mm-hmm. So every country is improvising. Every country, they have their own measures. Every country, they have their own trends. But to say that in Kuwait, we cannot afford buying masks, so like we're gonna let companies make masks and then make them sustainable. I don't think this applies it might apply in different places, but I think most of the people, they can afford, like, the masks are very cheap. They're available everywhere, almost everywhere, in like every co-op. So I think this is something interesting that is happening here now at this time. Like we tend to compare what's happening in for example in Kuwait, and then what's happening in the States and what's happening in Europe, and then why we're not doing similar or why we're doing similar. Like and it's very different in each country. Like we can't compare ourselves to the States because they really needed masks and they didn't have masks. But do we really like need to make masks?
I mean, like I said, like maybe going forward when masks have just become an integrated part of our outfit, like, you know, go out, grab your keys, grab your mask, let's get out the door, you know, it becomes like something that like, oh, I don't want it, like, I don't want this white surgical looking mask to clash with this really cute outfit I have on. Like maybe I want something subtle, like, you know, with like, you know, nude colors or a black one or something. I don't know. I guess it has like a vain aspect, a vanity aspect to it that like we forget that, oh, okay, instead of wearing the sheer like thing covering your face, it's supposed to actually protect you. Like it should have these proper layers to them, things like that, you know, that people maybe don't really care about. Actually, even now, like in those 2 hours that people go walking, I still see a lot of people that don't wear masks, so don't really abide. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just like a trend that'll die out soon. Who knows? In Kuwait, you know how these things are, like it's a lot of, it's very fickle, like things come in and out of style very quickly, so who knows?
I liked your suggestion, Shahad, about a workshop, because that way you're not profiting, you're you know, you're being sustainable and you're teaching people how to make their own masks at home, and they can put their own maybe input into that as well. You know,
Yeah,
so
I mean, you have Aseel who, I mean, can at the same time, I mean, there's a collaboration. It's a nice collaboration to see creatives kind of
See my DIY gas masks, they're a disaster.
I mean, a gas mask would be disastrous, especially at this time of the year. Like it's so hot, you know, like to even put that much on your face, you know. But I think, you know, with Aseel, it gives people a background on your work and like introduces like a previous projects. So maybe you can even have that like be something that's on like on display even, you know, or like as an exhibition. Or Tania, even like maybe kind of do an exhibition with artists who have done masks in the past and do like a mask exhibition. I'm just throwing out ideas, you know. But there's a lot of like things that we can do that or come up with now that are relevant to now. And I guess being relevant to now, that's what people want to talk about. Like people are so consumed by COVID that like, I mean, that's all they want to know. They want to like their news. They want to know like, cause it's like affected their lives so much. And they just kind of want to know what's happening, and they kind of want to be in it. But like, who knows? Like you said, Tania, you foresee that this is something that will kind of go away, and we'll be back to normal very soon. So who knows?
I don't know how soon, but I mean, we'll go back. I'm not worried about that.
Well, knowing Kuwaiti culture and Kuwaiti society, we're very resilient, and like, we don't like to be kind of like, we're very social, we're very resilient. So like, I don't think this is going to continue on for too long, but still like you do have a lot of like nasi waswasun, you know? So maybe they're like a little bit more OCD than others. So maybe when they go out, they do wear, like my mom, for example, like when she goes out on a regular day, like she'll like wear a mask, like that's like even before Corona and everything, like, you know, so for her it's like nothing new, you know, it's just like extra measures. So it's like when she'll go to the gym, yeah, she'll actually wear like a full getup, you know, and they'll call her, hi dictora, like that kind of thing, you know, and she's like, oh, okay, you know, like thank you, but I'm not a dictora. But like, just some people are just like extra, but I guess like, you know, you have to kind of be aware of like their pre-existing conditions. Some people are just like, you know, they're more susceptible to getting infected than others. So yeah. Okay, so moving on from crisis innovations, let's talk about the future. And I know we don't have that much time, so let's try to talk about it and get things out of the way. The future is what we've been talking about right now, and how the future looks like post-crisis, and especially how the future will look like for us as creatives. We spoke about the online, moving to the online, migrating to online business models. And I think now more than ever, like I said, we'll be seeing a lot more businesses take that more seriously, and a lot of artists too take that more seriously. So for Tania, I do want to talk about really quickly the fact that CAP, you do have a lot of openings that you do, and a lot of kind of public gatherings of artists and collectors and things like that. And I know sometimes even in one night you'll have more than one opening happening. So kind of how do you envision them taking place going forward? I know maybe now you can't speak concretely, but maybe give an idea of things that you've been discussing internally, and like kind of what safety measures do you think we'll be seeing, enforced safety measures coming out from CAP, as us as people who visit the gallery can expect?
Yeah, so we've been talking about the possibility of inviting or having people at the gallery on an appointment-based level. So that kind of ensures certain safety measures. Maybe people can also have a more personal experience, and you still allow them to be in front of the artwork, because I think, as much as the online world provides a great option to seeing it, like Aseel was saying before, there's a whole different aspect that goes into seeing an artwork firsthand. So I think by appointment, so at least, we probably won't have the openings that we used to for the foreseeable future. We have to kind of take this a little bit day by day and see how things go. But I think by appointment might be a good solution.
Yeah, I know there's a gallery in New York. I'm not sure the name of it, but I can get it for you later. I've been listening to different podcasts about how people are kind of reacting to this and what kind of things they'll be doing moving forward. So this gallery, instead of having like the old-fashioned 2-hour opening, they'll have like an opening day, I guess. So the opening will kind of be like a whole day thing. I guess, like it's so just to kind of introduce, like, okay, this is the exhibition, this is the opening day of the exhibition as opposed to 2 hours, to reduce kind of the footfall and to minimize like the social kind of contact with people. Maybe that's something you can adopt, or something, not to take away from like openings and to kind of make things completely different,
Yeah, the only thing is with that, I think it's less manageable because you don't know, how many people will come. Maybe everyone comes at the same time, and then.
Yeah.
But it's a nice idea to have kind of things more spaced out, So it doesn't all happen on the same evening, at least.
Okay, and let's see. Aseel, what about you? As an artist who obviously will potentially have exhibitions going on in the future, I know you'll probably be seeing some of these enforced safety measures taking place. Do you think that these will kind of take away from the viewer's experience of looking at your art? Or do you think knowing what you know now, and knowing what you know, knowing what will be taking place as a result, maybe kind of create exhibitions catered to that kind of viewer experience? Or what do you think?
I think that there are different types of audiences. So you have the collectors, and then you have just people who want to just see art and don't really want to go too deep into meanings. It's just like a visual experience for them. So I think that depending on who I'm addressing this work to on the spectrum, sometimes digital works and it's fine, satisfactory. They don't need to see the paper quality or the scale, but for others, like collectors and people who might actually invest in the work, then it's important to have that, what Tania was saying, this by appointment or really limited openings for people who actually want to acquire artworks. Otherwise, it just feels like, I don't know, I feel like it's something that I could postpone or push till I have a better grasp of what's happening. And I think that considering that I'm an extremely slow artist anyway, like I don't mind waiting another year until things like open up a bit more, rather than take the risk of doing my next solo show and there's only 15 people a day, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's so much as traffic that matters to me. It's just that why go through all that effort of creating a body of work and have it reduced to a very limited audience and then furthermore online.
Yeah.
So I'd rather wait. Yani, I feel like in my case, I don't mind waiting another year and seeing. Yani, I was supposed to have the show in Canada in April. I don't know if that's happening. But like, I don't mind postponing that and having it when it's sometime that's safer, particularly in a place where I feel like they might already have overcome it much earlier than we have. And so I'm more comfortable maybe showing it outside of Kuwait for now until Kuwait kind of gets a bit more, you know, secure and safe, and then we'll see, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, you don't want to be working towards a project for so long only to have it published online. I mean, that would be a shame, you know? But what I was thinking too is that when you do have it by appointment, you can kind of limit the amount of people coming in, and then you can kind of make it as if like, you know, when you have museum tours and you have little groups of people. So you kind of, I don't know, I feel like maybe if you do something like that and take them through it one by one, you can kind of give people a better understanding of an exhibition. Because I know when I go to openings sometimes, I don't really get to enjoy the art too much because it's like, oh, you see this person and you see that person and you catch up and you get a glimpse of this art. So you don't really get to, you always feel like, oh, okay, I think I need to go back to the exhibition again alone the next day or something, you know? So maybe something like that kind of will force people to view the art more seriously, and I don't know.
And you would get a very particular audience that would be interested anyway for the work rather than for the scene per se,
Yeah.
which seems the case most places, you know, like if you go abroad, it's like, oh, you know, like free drinks. If you're in Kuwait, it's like, hi, but did anyone really see the work? You know, has anyone really stopped for a second and enjoyed standing in front of one of the pieces? Or was it, because this is what I see at exhibitions.
Yes, definitely.
No one looks at the art unless most people look at it through their phones these days, you know, through a camera. So I think that the idea of having like a docent that takes people around and sort of like really like informs them of the artwork may actually reignite our understanding and ways of seeing art.
Yeah. Or the artist himself or theirself, you know, like create these, like I said, these like every 2 hours, I'll take in like 5 people or 10 people and do a tour and give a little thing, talk about, you know, the artwork, and then see, I don't know, I feel like that's like way more like interesting than having an opening. I never really liked openings. Even when I used to make exhibitions and things, like I hated openings. I would dread them actually, you know? Because like I said, it's just going to be a social thing and you're going to have to see people you haven't seen in a long time. Hi, what did you know? And it's just like, you know, like, and a lot of people come for the social aspect. They come because they want to meet this person. Oh, hey, like that's something to do. Oh, what are we doing today? Oh, we're going to go to this exhibition. And they come and they hang out and they drink tea and, you know, they just mingle. It's like they create, يسوون زحمة بمكان. And it's like, okay, are you going to look at the art or are you just going to stand around? If you're just going to stand around, you can maybe leave, go to a coffee shop or something, you know? But yeah, I think
Shahad, I mean, and everyone, I think this is an interesting take on that. Like, I was listening to a podcast at some point and then they were saying, I think it was the Spanish flu, or I think it was the Spanish flu. Basically what it did, and maybe it's a bad example, but what it did, it kind of cleaned the world. Like the generation that lived after the Spanish flu is basically the stronger generation. Like this is what they called in the podcast, like the elderly and then the sick, and they all died. So whatever generation came out of after the pandemic was strong and healthy. So maybe it's like if we take that example and apply it on art, maybe it's the same. So whatever measures that's going to happen in the future when it comes to galleries and visiting and seeing art, there is another layer of difficulty. So the person who is going to come and see the art, they really want to actually see the art and they're interested, and they're going to make extra effort this time, which might be, I mean, I'm not saying this is good or bad, but I think it's like a new phase, almost like a cycle that started again now, like a new cycle of understanding art or being interested in art.
It's a cleansing. It's like almost like you're cleansing industries,
right,
and starting them up again from scratch.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to not forget that the art world industry itself was implicit in making these scenes and creating these situations that have lowered, in a sense, the standards of art across the globe. Even when you go to art fairs, like the common consensus is, what the hell is this? You know?
Yeah.
And it's obviously art is a reflection of society and who we are.
Yeah.
But maybe through this, it becomes niche again, and for a particular audience that is just purely interested in it. And I think it's going to happen to everything, actually. It's like, I wonder for you, Mohammad, is like, who's going to, you can't ask for your studio to design a logo unless you have a business now. It's like, how many logo designs are you going to make now that businesses are actually closing?
Right, yeah. Definitely,
There's less businesses that are just sprouting, and maybe some artists will actually no longer be artists. You know, everyone can be an artist these days. And so they'll be like, you know what, I actually need to find a proper job now. I don't have the luxury to just sit and do art. And so even the artworks themselves are condensed. But it's interesting times. I'm very looking forward to the future.
Yeah.
Is the way I see like the local art market specifically, like, it's always been kind of volatile. I don't know, like even when I was with Dar al-Fanoon, and then with the gallery space I had with the print room, you can see that there's no consistency in the Kuwaiti art, like the art scene. You know, there's new artists popping in and out of the scene you see an artist who do a show and then you'll never hear from them for the next 5 years or something. You'll see a gallery open up for a season and then it'll close, and then so I wonder with this, like the filtering or the cleansing that you're talking about, like what we would see post-crisis, like what kind of artists will survive and what kind of galleries will survive, and will these be like the ones that will like obviously stand the test of time? You know, will these be the artists that we think are the ones that like, oh, these are the ones that we should truly invest in, they're the ones that will be able to survive and come out of this still strong, still thriving, you know? But it's very kind of interesting to see. Maybe if we have this discussion in like 6 months time to kind of like see what happened, like what's going on, who's still around, who isn't, you know?
Yeah. It might be like this.
Hopefully
exactly. Not, hopefully.
I mean, you're already like this, like on a normal season, mashallah, CAP has always been like absolutely always busy, you know, like I said, you have a couple of openings happening even in one night, so you're always like busy and doing things, and which is great. I mean, we do need galleries that are consistent and that we can rely on, and that we know that we can come to and see a proper exhibition, you know, rather than just kind of something put together. Because now in Kuwait there's just like a few galleries really that are like active, and especially now after Corona, I don't even know how it's going to be, what kind of quality artwork we'll be seeing from these galleries. So I don't know how the importing of artwork is going to be, if we're going to bring artists from abroad, you know, things like that. There's a lot of like small little things that I'm sure people will have to kind of figure out along the way. This,
I feel like it's a good time as well to focus on more on the local art scene. You know, like you said, we don't know about shipping and all of these things. So there could be more of an effort on, or more of a focus on, you know, the local scene.
And maybe now more than ever, like as creatives, like it's important now to kind of support each other. So Mohammad, even with you as being a designer, like an idea I have for you would be like, maybe you can have a service to help artists do websites. A lot of artists that don't have websites. Maybe this could be a service that you can offer. You being an artist and a designer, and you have that background and that know-how, the look and feel of what an artist's website should be. Maybe this is something that you can offer, obviously paid, you know, but maybe something nominal, considering artists are not really like, you know, rich, you know. So that's something that you can offer. Maybe Tania, as a gallery, you can start to offer like artists like a service for, you know, statement writing, portfolio building, these kind of things. I mean, it's a way now for us to kind of all come together and see how we can work with each other, considering we just have each other, really. Like, we've always just had each other. And I think taking that and going now into like the final point of funding for artists, not necessarily funding, but now relief funding. I know a lot of artists have been affected, and a lot of galleries have been affected. And I've seen a lot of things happening around the world, obviously. And now I've seen things happen even in Saudi Arabia. I've seen Ether Gallery come up with some kind of fund. And I've also seen Art Jamil come up with a fund as well for local UAE artists. So I know, like, in the past, we don't have that much faith in the public sector and the governmental funding. But what do you think? I mean, do you think this is something we can see here in Kuwait? Do you think this is something that we need to come up with as a creative community, like maybe like a GoFundMe or some kind of like collective initiative that we do together to help artists out? I know there are artists that were planning on doing exhibitions, people who have already finished their exhibition and were ready to open it, and now khalas, they can't show it anymore. I don't know, there's a lot of artists that are struggling and a lot of businesses, creative businesses that are struggling. It's nice for us to all come together and help out somehow. So I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Any one of you.
I think that what we need, I think we, as artists, we have a problem with state sponsorship. Because you're very much limited by the state and the funding provided by the state. And so unless it's some sort of like sculptural commission, public art, you know, then you, as a commission, it's almost like you have a brief and so you abide by it. But I think what we're really lacking here in Kuwait is our foundations and trusts. When you see these, you have the Cartier Foundation, you have the Mondrian Foundation, you have like Bill Gates and Melinda Foundation, you know, like these people have the money to create these funds and then support artists through juries. And that's the same with Art Jamil as well. So why is it, I'm surprised here in Kuwait is that we don't have that much patronage, and private patronage, individual patronage for supporting artists, whether it's like, here's 2,500 KD, you know, like we'll do annual competitions, even for small business firms, you know, like small studios, for graphic designers. It's like we have the money, we have the initiative to provide and give back as a CSR program, or even like, I'm surprised, I'm just surprised, like it's always this idea of like youth initiatives, and let's support the youth, but in what exactly, you know? There's specific genres in which you can support the youth. And what, yeah, let's try to change that up a bit. And I think that that's something that I don't know how we can do internally as like a force. It has to be something that is convinced through institutions, maybe through galleries, to create private individual patron funds supported by this institution to create new artworks or to support an artist who wants to make an exhibition. And it's shocking that every time I apply for a grant or something, it's rarely from the region and mostly from abroad.
Yeah,
and we have lots of money.
Yeah, that could be a nice way, maybe moving forward. I'm not sure, you know, like you said, Shahad, previously, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of support in terms of from the government sector, but maybe it's, you know, this kind of provides a you know, a solution on its own from our end, meaning the more private or on a more individual level. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a tough subject to talk about. There's so much angst that comes with it, you know. There's a lot of people who've tried so hard to get support from the government, obviously, and you know, it's very cliquey. Yeah, you know, money just goes out to certain groups, certain people. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, this is why we do what we do, and we're not just gonna sit and wait, I guess, for a handout. You know, we're just gonna kind of take matters into our own hands. So this is what I usually like to think about, in that what can we do as a community to help each other out? Like, I don't know, maybe a GoFundMe where each of us can, you know, whoever is capable, maybe it inspires, like, not necessarily patrons, just like the average person who buys like an artwork every year or two, you know, to put in like 10, 20, 30 KD, and who knows, maybe in the end we can come up with like a nice amount that could be dispersed among different sectors within the creative industry that need support, that maybe need to pay rent, need to fund a project that they couldn't fund because of, I don't know, pay cuts, things like that, things that have happened during Corona, because I know there's a lot of businesses that have been affected. And coming out of this, maybe a lot of businesses will bounce back, but maybe a lot of them will not, you know? So it's sad to see businesses go just because of money, you know? So, and not because you're doing bad work, basically. What do you think, Mohammad?
Well, what I think, I think we should make use of this crisis. I think one positive thing that I'm assuming that came out of this crisis is like, let's just try to be good. Let's just try to do good. And maybe like, I mean, maybe there are some things, some negative traits that, I mean, the community had, or like I don't know, that the art community or the businesses community had before this, like this feeling of like, we're always in a competition. We have to like, just make money, like regardless of anything else. I hope this cleansing or filtering that is happening now, they actually get extended to that. So like when you come out of this crisis, we really think that we need to be good. We need to do good things, good work. I'm hoping that like the galleries, the studios, the design studios, they think a little bit more about the community rather than just their own like business and making money. And I've seen some of the studios, some of the like small entities and organizations that they do that. They used to do that, and I'm sure they're gonna keep doing that. I would love to see more of that, like more of community, like more entities being responsible towards the community and trying to share knowledge, trying to share even clients, share, like collaborate. And I hope this whole crisis actually we come out of this crisis with some positive things that we consider in the future, because this is the only way we survive. Like if you're not going to be good, if you're not going to do good, you're not going to survive this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just important to, like you said, be good, be kind to other creatives. Like, don't be so like selfish with your resources, with your concepts, with your ideas. Like, you know, a lot of people these days like are struggling, and maybe you don't even know how much they're struggling. And obviously, you know, they don't show it as much, you know, but I think it's really important now, more than ever, that we come together as a creative community and be able to support one another and be there for one another and help each other out without any kind of incentive coming after it, you know? And I think only with that is that actually, you know, coming out of this and being able to go to that, I think that would make us a much better creative community than we were before. Because before we saw so many flaws within just like our peers, like peer to peer, you know, creative to creative. You saw so much animosity, so much kind of like jealousy, things like that. So hopefully now we kind of just kind of settle down and kind of just be able to be there and support each other. Gallery to creative to artist to just a normal person who even just is remotely interested in the arts somehow.
I want to say, I think we have been trying to do that even pre-COVID-19. But of course, I think there are always ways that we can learn and improve, no? And kind of maybe get better at, again, bringing out, I think, that goodness, that solidarity, that sense of unity.
Honestly, Tania and I think CAP, they're doing amazing stuff, like pre-COVID-19. I'm not saying that because you're here. And sometimes I question is like, why are they doing this? Like, they're not going to come up with any financial benefit out of what they're doing. But you keep, like, things keep happening. Like, whenever I look at the schedule, it's always full. Like, every week there are events happening. There are things like either exhibitions, lectures, talks, and all that. So I think, you're one of, like, CAP is one of the few, let's say, organizations that are actually doing some good community work.
Yes.
It's the passion.
Yeah. And the fact that, like, you don't have to think of it, because it is a nonprofit, right? So it's not really focused on the commercial money-making aspect. You can kind of relax and just, like, produce things out of, like, the good, and just because you want to kind of enrich the society and community with, like, really awesome work and exhibitions. Keep it up, CAP. Don't let Corona get to you and slow you down, please.
No.
Yeah. You too, Mohammad. Like, I really, like, hope, like, whatever rut you're feeling right now, you can come out of it. And, I know you're very, like, resilient, and you will definitely come out of it and be able to go back to what you were doing and maybe do things that are even better. And Aseel, I have no doubt about you and your abilities, mashallah. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I really enjoyed this, and I hope I didn't take away too much of your time today.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,